Bonjour, good day. Again, I just want to reiterate how important it is to focus on what people need most in this pandemic. The two things we've been saying again and again, I want to repeat. We need to make sure paid sick leave works. We have a federal program. The federal government, the Liberal government has obviously acknowledged that they have jurisdiction. They brought in this program because we fought and pushed them to do so. It just needs to be better so that people don't have to go into work sick. This is one of the most important tools to stop the spread of COVID-19. I don't understand why the Prime Minister is not just fixing the program. He knows, the experts have made it clear, there are some key problems, flexibility. We need to make sure it's easier to access and it covers a full days of work so that a worker will actually access the paid sick leave and be able to stay at home when they are sick. Secondly, we need to get vaccines to communities who need it most. This continues to be a problem. There's been lots of confusion, lots of mixed messages. We just need to get the vaccine to the communities who need it most immediately. It still continues to be the fact that those who need the vaccine the most are the communities that have the highest rate of infection, but the lowest rate of vaccination. That is a problem. We need to fix that. Donc, comme ailleurs, je vais répéter encore l'importance d'améliorer le programme de congé des maladies payées. C'est un outil le plus important en ce moment pour arrêter la propagation de la COVID-19 parce que la grande menace de la propagation sont dans les milieux de travail. Et le travail, aller au travail malade et ont droit de donner un programme qui fonctionne pour qu'ils puissent rester chez eux. C'est essentiel et on va continuer de mettre la pression sur Justin Trudeau. Il sait que le programme ne fonctionne pas et avec des changements faciles de rendre le programme plus flexible, que le programme est plus rapide pour accéder aux financements et finalement que le montant est le même montant qu'un travailleur gagne quand il travaille. Ce sont les critères qu'on doit changer, les éléments qu'on doit changer et le système, le programme va fonctionner pour sauver les vies. Et finalement, on a besoin des vaccins et la vaccination, en particulier dans les communautés qui en ont le plus besoin. C'est toujours le cas que les communautés qui ont la plus grande menace de la COVID-19, qui ont le plus grand danger, ce sont les communautés qui ont les moins de vaccinations. Donc, on doit changer ça. On doit s'assurer que la vaccination et les vaccins allent aux communautés qui en ont le plus besoin. On va continuer de mettre la pression sur Justin Trudeau d'aider dans cette façon. Merci, thank you. Avec ça, je suis prêt pour vos questions. With that, I'm ready to take your questions.
And we'll now take questions, starting with questions on the phone. As a reminder, one question, one follow-up per reporter. Nous allons maintenant passer aux questions, en commençant par les questions au téléphone. Operator, do we have a first question?
Oui, OK. La première question est de Marie Vestel, Le Devoir. The first question is from Marie Vestel, Le Devoir. Please go ahead.
J'aimerais revenir sur ce que vous avez dit hier sur l'oléoduc ligne 5 qui traverse notamment le Michigan. Je sais que vous en avez parlé beaucoup hier, donc j'ai bien compris votre position, mais j'essaie de comprendre, j'ai du mal à réconcilier votre position hier, disant que la ligne 5 demeure essentielle pour plusieurs familles, pour approvisionner les transports, avec votre plaidoyer en disant que vous demeurez malgré tout un parti pro-environnement. Le NPD, dans les dernières années, appuie quand même la ligne 5, le projet LNG dans l'Ouest. Est-ce que vous ne donnez pas des munitions au Parti vert qui faisait déjà l'argument que vous n'êtes pas réellement un parti pro-environnement? Est-ce que vous ne leur donnez pas des nouvelles munitions avec ça?
Ce que je veux dire, c'est le fait qu'on est dans cette position avec des craintes sérieuses sur l'environnement, les droits des communautés autochtones, à cause du fait que le gouvernement libéral a échoué leurs responsabilités. C'était un échec. Ils ont échoué leurs responsabilités et ça, c'est pourquoi on est dans cette situation. Il n'y a pas d'alternative d'énergie renouvelable. Donc, on doit critiquer le fait qu'on est dans cette position maintenant avec les inquiétudes de l'environnement, de la communauté autochtone et un manque d'énergie alternative à cause du gouvernement libéral qui a échoué leurs responsabilités.
Mais au-delà de faire porter le blâme au Parti libéral, vous êtes le chef du NPD. Comment est-ce que vous comptez contrer le discours du Parti vert qui assurément va marteler que vous n'êtes pas vraiment un parti pro-environnement puisque vous appuyez des projets ou des lignes existantes là, pétrolières comme ou des projets comme LNG ou des lignes pétrolières comme la ligne 5. Comment est-ce que vous comptez contrer cet argument-là du Parti vert qui va certainement le marteler là, pour critiquer vos positions?
Comme parti, on a continué de critiquer le fait que le gouvernement libéral continue d'exempter les grands pollueurs, le fait qu'il continue de subventionner les secteurs pétroliers en général. Ce sont les enjeux qu'on a dit clairement. On doit arrêter les subventions des secteurs pétroliers tout de suite. On doit arrêter de continuer d'exempter les grands pollueurs. Et on a dit clairement qu'on doit investir dans une économie durable où on crée des bons emplois qui réduisent les émissions. C'est mon engagement personnel. Je pense que c'est tellement important qu'on défende l'environnement, qu'on lutte contre la crise climatique et on crée des bons emplois. On est toujours là pour défendre l'environnement. Au niveau fédéral, on va continuer de faire ça.
Opérateur, prochaine question.
Our next question is from Catherine Lévesque from La Presse canadienne. La prochaine question est de Catherine Lévesque de La Presse canadienne. La parole est à vous.
Oui, ben, merci beaucoup. Bonjour, M. Singh.
Bonjour.
J'aimerais vous faire réagir à une situation. On nomme Marc Garneau, le ministre des Affaires étrangères, qui s'apprête à voyager à l'international pour la deuxième fois en moins d'un mois. Et pour ce faire, en fait, il va écourter un peu sa quarantaine. Donc, il est revenu du Royaume-Uni. Là, il va faire une quarantaine de 13 jours plutôt que de 14 jours. Et ensuite, il s'en va en Islande. Je me demandais qu'est-ce que cette situation vous inspire?
Moi, comme j'ai dit en avant, on doit continuer de suivre les conseils des experts en matière de santé. Et le conseil, c'est qu'on ne doit pas voyager et en particulier, on doit complètement éviter les voyages non essentiels. Donc, c'est encore ce que j'exige à toute la population de faire et c'est ce qu'on doit faire comme des leaders pour montrer un bon exemple de ce qu'on doit faire. Donc, c'est encore, si le voyage n'est pas essentiel, on doit l'éviter. Ils ont demandé en anglais pour cette réponse aussi.
Oui, OK.
So, as I've said in the past, we need to follow public health guidelines, and namely, we need to avoid any non-essential travel. That is something that is clear, and as leaders, we need to use our position to set a good example and avoid any non-essential travel. Et puis, votre suivi?
Oui, ben, juste pour avoir un peu plus de clarté, ça vous choque pas, vous, M. Singh, qu'il y ait certaines règles qui s'appliquent au gouvernement libéral et d'autres règles qui s'appliquent à tous les Canadiens? C'est pourtant une ligne que vous répétez souvent, donc je m'étonne de voir que vous n'êtes pas plus choqué par la situation.
Non, bien sûr, j'ai vu le commençant en donnant des conseils pour la population, pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes, de suivre les conseils des experts en matière de santé. Mais oui, ça me choque qu'ils ne suivent pas les règlements de quarantaine de 14 jours. C'est important qu'on suive les règlements et aussi qu'on donne un bon exemple pour les autres. Donc, ça me choque, oui, bien sûr. Et encore, je dis que on est dans une situation de crise. C'est tellement difficile. On a vu des chiffres records et on a vu des chiffres qui augmentent à travers les pays. Donc, on doit faire tout ce qu'on peut pour faire face à cette crise, pour faire face à cette pandémie. Et j'encourage les gens de suivre les conseils de santé publique. Mais aussi, je suis choqué par le fait que le gouvernement libéral ne suit pas les conseils et les règlements.
Operator?
Okay. Yeah. There's no follow-up, so that's yes. I wanted to start off by just talking about how I want to encourage people to follow public health guidelines and to keep each other safe. But yes, it is shocking that the Liberal government, from what's been raised, are not following the requirements of 14-day quarantine, and they're not following the rules. We should be setting good examples. The Liberal government should be setting a good example to make sure that we are showing leadership in following through with the public health guidelines. It is shocking that it seems like the Liberals are not doing that.
Operator, next question. Operator, next question.
There are no further questions registered at this time. Nous n'avons plus de questions pour le moment. Now I'd like to turn the meeting back over to Ms. Thibault. J'aimerais maintenant retourner la parole à Mme Thibault.
And questions in the room? Mia?
Good afternoon, Mia Rabson from the Canadian Press. I'm wondering if you would weigh in again on this AstraZeneca discussion that's happening. Most provinces saying that they're not going to use it for first doses because of supply, but Ontario saying that because of a safety risk. And there are some Canadians who are saying, look, I'm an adult. I know what the risks are. I still want it. Should provincial governments and Health Canada be giving Canadians more credit that if they are getting informed consent, they should still be able to get this particular vaccine?
I can tell you, I got the AstraZeneca vaccine. I really believe that the idea that we take the first vaccine available to keep ourselves safe, the risks of getting COVID-19 and the complications and the symptoms, from what I've heard from public health experts, is far worse than the risks of taking the vaccine. So I believe we should be taking the vaccine. And again, I defer though to the public health guidance in terms of what is the best course of action. And really the goal should be, how do we keep people safe? How do we get people vaccinated as quickly as possible and keep Canadians as safe as possible? That's our goal. And I want to support all measures and all efforts to achieve that goal.
I'm also curious if you're concerned that the message Canada, the UK, other countries are sending to countries for whom AstraZeneca is really the only vaccine that they'll have access to. Are we sort of taking all of the mRNA vaccines and now leaving a vaccine we think is inferior to developing countries?
In general, what this pandemic has shown is systemic racism, but specifically systemic challenges to those less fortunate. We've seen very clearly that those who are poorer, those who are more vulnerable, have been more at risk to get sick and to not have access to supports. That's happened in Canada. We have direct evidence that there is a systemic nature of this pandemic that has impacted people that are already more vulnerable, who already had challenges, and that's been exacerbated by the pandemic. And that's exactly what we're seeing on a world stage as well. The same challenges. Countries that are wealthier are able to respond, and countries that are poorer are having incredible challenges. I think about what's happening in India and think about what's happening around the world, where communities and countries are really struggling and they can't afford access to the vaccine. One concrete step that Canada could take right now is to support the demand of poorer countries, countries that are less developed, that are saying we need a vaccine, we need a patent waiver so we can produce the other vaccines in our country. That has to happen. And it is very hypocritical and also absurd that Justin Trudeau showed up to a benefit concert to raise funds, but has yet to actually take a stand as a country and say that we will support the waiver. The United States has already supported the waiver. The fact that Canada is not leading on this, specifically that Justin Trudeau and the Liberal government is not leading on this, is really shameful. We need to be doing our part to support countries around the world that don't have access to vaccines by supporting a waiver of the vaccine patent.
Prochaine question.
Hi, Mrs. Singh, David Thurton, CBC News.
Hey there.
Do you have any concerns about getting your second dose of AstraZeneca? And would you consider maybe getting an mRNA vaccine if you're offered that instead?
I'll take whatever second dose I'm offered, and I'll take it as soon as it's available. So that's what I encourage everyone to do. But again, we will follow the public health guidelines around what they recommend. I'm not concerned. And I think what my doctor told me when I got my vaccine is make sure you're following your symptoms, make sure you're keeping track of how you feel, and immediately get help if you're not feeling well or if there's any symptoms that come up. I think that's good advice, and that's the advice that I followed. I will take whatever vaccine I'm offered and take my second dose as soon as I'm eligible to take it.
So you're cool with vaccine mixing? You'd be fine with a mixed drink, so to speak?
Well, I don't drink, so I wouldn't be cool with a mixed drink. But I would take whatever the health officials say if it's, and I've heard people saying that is possible. If it's something that's advised by Health Canada and by the public health experts, I'll do it. If it's not advised, again, I'll take the advice that I'm given, and I'll get the vaccine that I'm offered, that I'm eligible for, and that I should be taking as soon as I can.
And I'll check one more time if there's a question on the phone. Opérateur.
There are no further questions registered at this time. Nous n'avons plus de questions pour le moment.
And one last
I'd like
question
to turn
in
the
the
meeting
room.
back over to Ms. Thibault. J'aimerais maintenant retourner la parole à Mme Thibault.
Yes, Mr. Say, I couldn't let you leave without asking you again about the situation that's happening in Jerusalem and Gaza. We heard from the Prime Minister today, yesterday. He kind of basically had comments that were very similar to yours. I'm sure you heard those. What more does Canada need to do to achieve peace in this region?
What's going on is very serious. And my heart goes out to the folks and the community members, Palestinians that are struggling with horrible loss and extreme violence right now. It is very scary. And we've seen some of the reports, the images. It is shocking and it is horrible. And so what we're calling on, and what I'll be calling on later on today as well, is that Canada can play a stronger role, and Justin Trudeau specifically can play a stronger role. One of the things that we've mentioned and other human rights experts have said, we need to put pressure on Israel to engage in a peaceful resolution. And so one of those elements of pressure that we can place is making sure we're not selling arms to Israel that are being used in a conflict which is breaching international law or violating human rights. So that's a concrete step we can take. Something that I support, and something that international human rights groups have said, we need to apply pressure so that we can encourage a peaceful resolution. We need peace. People in Israel and in Palestine have the right to live in peace, but we need to apply pressure to achieve that.
And this,
Can I-
you have another one?
Yes, I do.
Go
I
for
do.
it.
So that is new, because I haven't heard you say that. Your membership, the membership of the NDP at your last convention last month, has called on your party to adopt more stronger language and to even go as far as to have Canada not sell arms to Israel. So how is that going to work? What's your proposal? Expand on how you're going to call on the Canadian government to stop arms sales to Israel.
Well, this is something that we've got a mechanism in place that Canada has the ability to make that determination. We've called for it, for example, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, based on the human rights violations that have been going on and continue to go on, whether it's the treatment of people in Saudi Arabia or the involvement in the conflict in Yemen, which is also a horrible humanitarian crisis right now. So we've called on it before. We've got a mechanism that allows us to make determinations around sending or exporting weapons based on a human rights evaluation. Using that same mechanism, given what's going on right now, that is something that I'll be calling for later on in question period today, but something that I believe that Canada can take a stand on, that weapons that are being used in conflicts which violate human rights or that violate international law should not be, then that should not be happening, that should not occur.
And this concludes the press conference. Ici, mes fins de conférence de presse. Merci.
Merci.